We agree that the fight for gender equality and sexual equality is extremely worthwhile. But the solution is to rely on public discourse rather than bludgeoning society with legislation. I'm going to ask 3 questions in my speech. First of all, what are sexist and homophobic lyrics? Second, do such lyrics cause significant harm? And third, even if they did, do governments have a duty to ban such harm? First of all, what are sexist and homophobic lyrics? Now, notice how down all 3 speakers, proposition never provided any meaningful criteria of what constituted sexist or homophobic lyrics. I quote the very vague definition provided by their first speaker, that it's anything that portrays women or like individuals of sexual minorities in a negative light. But what in the world does the word negative mean? I mean, singing that your love is my drug could be interpreted as like seeking male dominance in a vulnerable female life, or rapping about, for instance, hoes making sandwiches could be perceived as entrenching gender stereotypes that exist in our society. The reason why this is important is because you have to notice how this definition of sexist and homophobic comments slip in second to become subtle and ingrained prejudice. And finally, in third, they expanded it to say, alright, we're going to cover everything. The reason why this is important is because it gives states massive power to decide what is permissible in social discourse. What proposition effectively does is to whitewash music and draw artists away from even daring to discuss any kind of gender or LGBTQ issues for fear of being censored. It is precisely because artists have that profit incentive that their second speaker talked about, that artists are going to shy away from even venturing into any kind of positive discourse, even in their work, because it's a kind of vague and illusory kind of definition and criteria that they do not provide artists, that artists are a lot more likely to say, alright, you know what, I'm just going to stay away from such issues, and I'm not going to engage in even any kind of positive discourse. And the reason why this is even more important is because of my second speaker's argument on language reclamation, about a significant minority of artists that are growing in number each day, aiming to reclaim insults, aiming to reclaim terms that are known in historical context, in a modern world context, in which one that empowers individuals in the world today. And the reason why this is important is because it actually empowers individuals. And what proposition does is that it shuts out that kind of language reclamation and the kind of debate that will occur over such terms and issues in daily life. Now, the next thing I'm going to mention is that the struggle for gender equality and sexual equality is incredibly nuanced. Different people and different groups have different views on what kind of language is incendiary and what ideas should be allowed in our social space. Even among like feminists in our society, none of them agree on whether Robin Thicke's song Blood Lines is necessarily sexist or not. There are many individuals who feel that it's not because it's merely playing between the lines of what is a asymmetric power relationship, or many feel it does because it incentivizes date rape culture. What happens here is that proposition creates an environment where society cannot meaningfully explore the boundaries of social issues through discourse. So not only is proposition policy impossible to actualize, they shut down discourse because artists shy away from any kind of positive communication and positive messaging through their songs. Second key point of contention: whether sexist and homophobic lyrics really cause harm in our society and to what extent. Now, the key logic we heard here was that such lyrics cause harm by creating a culture of sexism and homophobia. How in the world does this happen? It's not as though homophobic and sexist lyrics block out or countervailing societal narratives, ladies and gentlemen. We live in a world where artists who champion equality through their music have become effective counterpoints to sexism or homophobia. Because for every flagrantly racist song that is sung by Drake, there exists a really progressive rap that is produced by Macklemore. The reason why this is important is because the culture of sexism is a myth, given that the views are just one in a tapestry of public opinion that interact with each other. Furthermore, we argue that artists themselves aren't monolithic, homophobic, or liberal in nature. We think that songs merely reflect a small part of a singer's psyche. Again, Robin Thicke may sing about blood lines, but in the very same concert, he may sing about sexual equality or stand up for women's rights in the public sphere. This is what my first speaker talked to you about breaking the illusion that artists only stand up for one monolithic concept and therefore perpetuating the kind of sexism or homophobia that proposition was talking about. That's just not true. We think there are a lot more shades to this kind of discourse because songs don't become symbols of hate or prejudice because they have to be viewed in the context of the wider music industry as well as a performer's personal narrative as an individual. The reason then is that human beings are complex and contradictory, and we think that music often reflects the type of contradictions and nuances in our lives. And the reason why we need to do so is because music is a powerful form of expression to talk about issues like homophobia and talk about issues like sexism. And that's why we think it's such a negative thing to whitewash discourse on the proposition side of the house. The next argument we heard here was that desensitization and stereotyping occurs when we listen to such lyrics. Now, we argue that the problem of rape culture and stereotypes are that they are unspoken realities that influence behavior. But by vocalizing opposition to songs that negatively stereotype, we can decry Robin Thicke for including provocative lyrics in this song, and we can engage in public debate over the role of rape culture in our society and the extent to which it influences our views. The fact remains that even though these perceptions may occur on both sides, at least our side changes it from being an unspoken reality to one that society is forced to confront on a daily basis through editorials in the New York Times, through cultivating songs by other singers, through feminists standing up on social media, or LGBTQ activists standing up to decry such lyrics. And that's the important thing about stereotypes and perception, because it's only changed when we are forced to confront it and engage in discourse over it. And we have argued consistently that music and pop culture is the entry point to which we can begin to organically combat such stereotypes and organically combat such prejudice. Now, again, we never argue that discussion would always work, but rather that the interaction of opposing views is better than shunting the problems under the table. We've argued to you that bands don't work because stereotyping and perceptions are far more multi-causal than proposition would have you believe. They delude people into the false sense of security, into believing that sexism and homophobia is expunged when insidious notions of rape culture and homosexual inferiority are perpetuated in their world by the mass media and entrenched societal mindsets anyway. So the important thing is that they create this illusion of false societal acceptance, which we really don't want, and we combat them by breaking the kind of insulated chambers that they place individuals in. The final question I want to ask is, even if all this was true, even if I was really wrong on everything I was making, do governments have a duty to legislate on such harm? Now, proposition's logic centered on only a few false parallels to hate speech and banning seatbelts. Let's take them apart. First, the parallel to hate speech. Now, we ban hate speech because it's an incitement to violence. We don't ban casual remarks that may be perceived as racist or sexist. The very same sexist remarks that a sexist people talk to you about in your speech. So we don't think that the parallel hate speech even stands, because we ban hate speech because it incites people to riot or incites people to engage in violence. And even if we think that the parallel may be exactly the same, then we argue that we don't think states should ban hate speech, because we believe that states are a reflection of public morality, as my first video told you about, rather than a row of philosophizing legislators who decide in a corner what's best for society and then imposes it on the rest of the world. That's the kind of democratic principles of discourse and discussion that we consistently argue down the line and is not dealt with the all three speakers on proposition. Now, the next thing we argued was that, yes, we might legislate individuals to wear seatbelts in the instances of harm. But given that I've already shown that the kinds of harm that are caused by misogynist remarks or homosexual or homophobic remarks in songs can be combated by other groups standing up and defending such equality, and by other activists standing up to diffuse such hate and incitement to violence, we argue that harms are illusory and they're not really part of this debate. That parallel falls as well. For that reason, shutting up music doesn't mean